Yom Chamishi, the Parshas Bo, Yeshiva Tiferes, Avigdor, Shnas Tovshin Ayin Vov, Ve'ez Hashem Yisbarach. This shiur is sponsored Le'ilui. There should be an aliyah for the neshama and the guf of Ezra Aaron Berash Chana. This is for Hidah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for being Mimale his bakasha. He asked Hashem that if it wasn't good for him to lose, doesn't want to win. And Hashem was mish'al his libay l'tayva. So in gratitude to Hashem Yisbarach, we'd like to sponsor this year. And he decided he's going to go a course of bitachon. Hashem took care of him till today. Shomer P'soyim Hashem. Hashem will take care of him continuously for many, many more years. And Hashem should hopefully answer the other mish'alis, libay, that he has, the mehera. Yesterday we discussed a very important practical lesson to understand that when somebody finds himself in a Mitzrayim, what should a person do? He should undertake to do some act of Mesiras Nefesh. Now, first I want you to know that it seems, is this with tshuva or without tshuva? What does this role of the Mesiras Nefesh take place? Of course, it works with tshuva. But the chiddush is that the tshuva that Klal Yisroel did then was a weaker tshuva at that point in time. The ones that were left definitely made a move toward Hashem. But a lot of times, when a person is going through a difficulty, it's very hard for them at that point to engage in a proper tshuva that will have a lasting effect. And that's where the role of actions of Mesiras Nefesh comes into play. And the makar for this is from the Chazal. We once had a story of I got a phone call, Erev Shabbos, in the afternoon. A man was on the phone and he was crying, and he called to me if I could come to the hospital immediately. His mother's dying, and he would like me to perform the rites of what you're supposed to perform before somebody Yitzias Neshama. I said, I'll be there shortly. Got into the car, dropped everything, and I took off to the hospital. Came into the hospital, walked up to this flight, the right place, and I see three fellas outside, in white coats, outside the room. And I said to them, excuse me, are you here in reference to this patient, certain patient? I mentioned the name. I said, yes. I said, you are, and you are. One was a nephrologist, one was a neurologist, one was some other neurologist. And I said, I'm the rabbi, what's the situation? They said they give it about an hour and a half to 2 hours. All the organs are shutting down. It's already in matziv of gesisa. I said, is she awake? She said, no, she's been out of it for 3 days. She hasn't eaten. And the things are shutting down. So I said to her, may I go into the room? They said, sure, go ahead. I walked into the room, and there was this small, diminutive woman laying there, flat on her back, with her eyes closed. And I walked into the room, I stood next to her bed, and I started to daven. I opened up the drawer, I saw there was a sitter there. Ashkel sitter, her son had brought. When I opened it up, and I started saying some Tillim, and then, after a while, I went and I noticed her eyes fluttered open, and I said, hello, Mrs. So-and-so. And I wanted to get her to do vidui. But you're not supposed to scare somebody before they... I said, I see you're doing a lot of sleeping. Would you like to say the prayer that one says before they go to sleep? I said, every night there's a custom. I don't know if she was hearing me or not hearing me. And she flooded with her eyes. So I took out the Hareini Moichel, I opened the siddur, and I said, I Moichel everybody, and I asked for Mechila from Hashem, if I did this, and I added a lot of additions to the Hareini Moichel, and I said, this is a Jewish custom that we say before we go to sleep, so that you sleep peacefully. And she lapsed back into the coma. And I continued davening there, and then the family arrived, they're all there, and I wasn't sure what to do. So she opened up her eyes, and I said, Mrs. So-and-so, would you like to make a deal? And the family looked at me strangely, and she, I didn't know if she heard, I wasn't like I didn't know I was talking to her. And she opened her eyes, and then she mouthed the words, with who? I said, with Hashem. So she closed her eyes again. A little while she opened up later, and she mouthed the words, what? And I said, the specifics of the deal I'll discuss another time. But the deal is as follows. You are going to undertake to do the will of Hashem in an area where it may be difficult for you. You accept to do the will of Hashem. And she said, she thought about it for a while, and she said, she mouthed the words again, okay. And I didn't say anything. Maybe 10 minutes later, the nurse came in. It was a shift, like a 3:30, 4 o'clock shift, and the next shift came on, and the nurse saw me, and he saw his son with a yarmulke and a beard, and he said, oh, the patient was Orthodox. I didn't know she was Orthodox. She wasn't. But I said, yes. She said, would you like me to bring the Shabbos box? I said, please, bring the Shabbos box. So the hospital has like a Shabbos box with electric candles, with the grape juice, with matzah. I was like the filter fish. I said, bring a Shabbos box, please. Then she brought it, and she said, oh, I think there's a mistake here. I said, when she brought it back, I said, what's the matter? She said, I just saw the chart. You know, the situation is already like, I've got her word, but she's a ksisa. This is, last moments. She ain't spending Shabbos on this earth, she's spending Shabbos upstairs. I said, just humor us, play along, please. And she said, oh, okay. And she put the box down, she set the candles up, she set the thing up. And then she said, she went out, she came back, she said, how orthodox is she? I said, what difference does it make how orthodox she is? So the nurse said, well, see, there's different levels of orthodoxy, I'm sure you know. Some people put on lights, some people don't put on lights. Some people tear tissue paper, some people don't tear tissue paper. Some people move their bed up and down, some people don't move it. So what level? I didn't know what to say. But suddenly the lady opened up her eyes and she said, now, very. That's what she said. Now, very orthodox. And she kept her eyes open this time. And I said to her, I'm going home now, it's getting close to Shabbos. I said, I'm going to send you. I said, do you like chicken soup? Do you like fresh salmon? I remember this lady hadn't eaten in 3 days. I said, I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to pack up, my wife's going to pack up for you. I'm going to send you a Shabbos dinner, the covered Shabbos. I ran home, told my daughter, come on, when you get this, make a tray ready, a little salad. Don't make it a great thing. Salad, gefilte fish, soup, hot soup, put it in a container and run back to the hospital and deliver it. And my daughter would deliver it. I went to shul and was not there anymore. At the Suda, I'm doing that to Hashem, I thank Hashem for being in the hospital, just to see somebody. Well, then I said to my daughter, I said, oh, by the way, I said, tell me, what happened when you went there? She said, oh, she sat up, she wanted to see the food, she wanted to smell the food. I said, did you go to the right room? Did you go to room this? It was the first bed or the second bed? Oh, the first bed. I went to the first bed. She sat up. She said, yeah. She said, thank you. Have a good Shabbos. I'm going to enjoy this thing. I couldn't wait to Shabbos. I thought I was like having hallucinations. Anyway, went to Shabbos. I go rushing. And, hello, what's going on? Feeling great. If everything keeps going, they can discharge her Monday. What? Discharge Monday? I let her out Monday. Went home. So the son asked me, what are you going to tell her to do? I said, 2 mitzvahs. One of them was covering her hair. Wanted to cover her hair, sneeze, that's going to be a schus for her. Now at this point, she was living in the son's house, so she was eating kosher, and she was just keeping the mitzvahs. According to what the son was doing, she was following along. And the next Shabbos, they were sitting at their table, and they were talking about how what the difference in 1 week in a person's life could be. Talking about an 81-year-old woman, and she was gone. She came back from the other side. So she said to her son, I wonder what Rabbi Brog has in mind to tell me to do. The son said, no, nothing big. He said, what's that? He said, to cover your hair. And she lost it. She was a tough lady. She said, is he crazy? The only thing I have left is my hair. Now, her hair was not to look at, trust me. It was very sneeze, the way it was. And if she would have walked in the street, someone would have asked her if a mop got stuck on her head, and a bad mop. It was not nothing, but well, it'll enhance her situation. Her son said, Ma, I don't think you're in a position to bargain. You know, oh no, that I'm not doing, I don't care. She's so kind of stupidity, I just started getting a little worked up about it. Picked herself up, walked away from the Shabbos table, went to her room, and closed the door. Oichi Shabbos, I get a call. Guy's crying by the phone. I said, what's the matter, what's the matter? He said, my mother's back in the ICU. I said, what happened? Tells me the whole story. I said, oh, no. He said, she went into the room. Next thing you know, she had an attack. They called the ambulance. Care taken away. And now it's a lot worse than it was last time. How could it be worse? He said, because last time, she was able to breathe on her own. Now, she can't breathe on her own. She's got no kind of a ventilator, and she has a big mask over her face. There's a lot of, she got needles all over her body. Rebbe, could you come? I said, let's wait a day or two, let's see what happens. Anyway, 2 days go by, and Monday he says to me, could you come? I said, listen, what am I going to come for? I said, please come. So I came, and she saw me, and I said, so-and-so, you should have a full shlema, a speedy recovery. Sorry to see you here again. And then her hands were tied down, so her son lifted up the thing from her mask, and she said, "Can I give tzedakah, or can I daven?" I said, I don't want to do that. I said, obviously the idea is breaking your will and giving into the will of Hashem is what it's about. If you're not breaking your will and giving into the will of Hashem, it's not going to work. It's called a little Tiferes. You got a little b'chol nafshech. That's a hard thing for you. She got very upset at me, Mamish. I thought she was like shaking her hands, Mamish. And then she said, when I grew up in Cleveland, all the Rebbitzins didn't cover the hair. So you're 100% right. And all those Rebbitzins are not living anymore. I said, all the Rebbitzins of today cover the hair. So make a choice. You want to belong to the old group or to the new group? Which club? You want to be club new or club old? At that point, even the stuff later didn't have any answer to that. I'll daven, I'll this, I'll that. Anyway, I told the son, prepare a snood in the thing. And the matzah got worse. The doctor told me, Rabbi, he said, this time, he said, last time you pulled a fast one. But this time, she's not getting out. And if by some magic she gets out, she's never going to see the light of day again. Because her lungs are so compromised from this attack, this episode, she's never going to be able to walk again. It's that. Let me tell you something. I met a lot of fellas like you. Some of them have learned their lesson. Never to say never. Don't underestimate the power of God. I'm not saying you're wrong in this situation, but don't underestimate the power of God. Hey, sure, there's a cold shoulders. You know what I mean? Like, and it got worse and worse. And if you could see so, and then at one point in time, the lady opened her eyes from a coma, and she said to her son, "Everybody make this stuff up." He said, "No, it's the Mishnah Berurah, it's the Torah. You have to cover your hair, married woman." She said, "If I wanted to do it, even how would I do it?" So the son said, "Oh, Ma, I just have, by the way, have to have a snood right here for my wife." "You do? Okay, let me have it." "Ma, are you doing it because you want to do it? Or are you doing it because Rabbi Brog's forcing you?" "Don't do it." I told him, tell the mother not to do it because I'm forcing her. It has to be done on her will willingly. And she took the snood, the son put it on her head, she held on to her hand, she went back into her coma. And for a couple of days, the son was crying, "What's going to be?" I said, "Listen, even though she dies, she died in tshuva. That's a wonderful thing. That's not a bad thing. To die." So I said, "But don't give up. I see you never know what Hashem will do." And the mice, she got out of the hospital, and she came home again. And not only that, before she went into the hospital, she was able to walk not more than 80 steps because of her breathing. Very bad emphysema, very bad lungs. And eventually, when she got home, she was able to walk 288 steps. And she said, Brog said to everybody to my house, and I'm going to tell them the story, they're going to know that there's Hashem in the world, and what she call. And she lived, not for another day, she lived for 4 more years. Then she left this world. And I said, this is called Mesiras Nefesh. She broke herself. You got to break yourself. Even though the tshuva for her life wasn't such a stark tshuva, but she made it Mesiras. The Yidden in Mitzrayim, the Chazal say, did the same thing. They needed this Mesiras Nefesh. They did tshuva. But they did a tshuva. Plus, the Medrash says like this, V'Rabban and Amri Vayar Elokim, Hashem saw the Yidden. You know what it says? Sha'asu tshuva habeinanim. The Beinanim did tshuva. V'gam harishayim hiraru ben tshuva. Even the Rishayim were maharer in tshuva. They didn't do tshuva, but and it brings a pasuk of like early fruit, unripe. It started, it began. Ateina chonta pageret. Vayed Elokim, and Hashem knew. What does it mean Hashem knew? Of course Hashem knows. So the matter is like this. Shafilu echad b'chaveiroi lo yhodei. No one did tshuva in such a way that his fellow man knew he did tshuva. They did tshuva in secret. They had to hear a tshuva in secret. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew. Yeah? And the Midas Hadin was Mekatrik on it. But they did tshuva. They were mashbul themselves, they did tshuva. So you see from this a tremendous thing. That any tshuva you do, Hashem considers. Even if you didn't do tshuva with the greatest kavanah, even if you didn't do tshuva with the greatest conviction, even if you didn't do tshuva in the greatest way, but if you make a move toward Hashem, and you say to Hashem, I'm going to break my will, and I'm going to do something, Mesiras Nefesh, to go do this, buying this Korban Pesach, 4 days before and tie it in their beds was a bit major ma'isa of Mesiras Nefesh. To go and do a milah was a major ma'isa of Mesiras Nefesh. It's not easy. I've been present when adults do milah. I've seen adults back out the last minute after asking for milah and wanting to do it, coming to the table and saying, can't do it. No, can't do it. And I said, don't worry about it, take it easy. The doctor spoke to them. Couldn't do it. And here they went, mouthed themselves, God's clients. They knew they were setting out on a trip. It wasn't exactly the right conditions. It wasn't in a hospital. And they did it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to them, if you do the right thing, Hashem take care. Now, then there's a third thing that a person does in order to be zeich. And that is, you think about the future. That's what you do. What does that mean, think about the future? The Medrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that Klal Yisroel, their future was bleak. Why? He said he saw they were going to rebel by the Yam Suf. But on the other hand, Hashem saw they were going to say, Zekeli Vavei. Hashem saw that they were going to do an egel. But on the other hand, Hashem saw they were going to makabel the Torah and say Nasav and Ishmael. So the Chazal, you have to understand this Chazal. Generally, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not judge a person based on the future. So why was there a kitruk over here against them at all? And the answer is like this. You have to know that sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if it's for your benefit, He takes the future into cheshbon. But if once He looks into the future, He has to look at the positive and the negative. And He has to see which one outweighs the other. And therefore, means even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to count the Zek, Kalev, and Veo in their credit, but on the other hand, Hashem had to take into cheshbon, they're going to be Mamra Aliyah. Or Hashem said they're going to be Kabul Torah, but they're going to do an egel. And Hashem had to decide which, and Hashem decided this doesn't. So what a person should do, from this we learn that when a person is in a tough matzav, he should create for himself zechuyos from the future. That's why it says that a person is in a bad matzav, he should mekabel upon himself to learn something extra, or to give tzedakah something extra. Mr. HaRav was once in a very serious situation, mekabel to learn a mesechta, something extra. Top of his, and then you have the cheshbon right now. Somebody called me this week, very, very difficult situation, critical situation, extremely critical. ois mensch, don't blame the person. What can I do? I said, be makabel to learn something right now. Take a big perek, take a big mesechta, and commit yourself. I said, don't do it. He said, I know, I start things, but I don't finish them, and I get sidetracked, and everything gets fine. I said, no, it's got to be for good. If you're going to do it from the beginning to the end, it's going to be, you have the whole cheshbon right now, and things will get better, magician. Because you add to your schuyas amazing amounts. And the person did. Hopefully, it went from critical to critical and stable. Now it's less critical. In the middle, the person called me up, it's getting worse. Not worse. A lot of times it looks like it's getting worse. Getting worse means it's getting better. The person was mamash, I was with Kabul, I did this, I did this, and all of a sudden the doctor says, this is bad. This is very bad. I can't lie to you. He says, it's getting worse. I said, getting worse is a good time. That's the Mitzrayim. Get worse before it gets better. Baruch Hashem. Now we're past the worst, we see it's getting better. And the B'Tz Hashem, everything will work out, and we're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel shortly. So a person has to know that this is what you have to understand. You have to consider what's the schus. Create for yourself a schus to do. There are people that undertake to give their lives over to do chesed. Different things. Dedicate themselves to. And that becomes their ticket. Al Shem Ha'aseh. So we see from this the following. Anytime you're in a tzara, number one, if you got a bracha from somebody, or if you have amunah bitachon, which is better than a bracha, or as good as a bracha, so then that's like you have a promise, everything is going to be fine. And a person has to understand that that's step number one. You machazik your amunah bitachon that things will go better. But obviously there was a midas hadin on you. Obviously there was a challenge. So what you do then is you makabel upon yourself to do something with mesiras nefesh. You start a process of tshuva. You get the message from Hashem, and you start to break your will and do the will of Hashem. The next thing you do is you makabel upon yourself to do something in the future, a good zach, special mitzvah. And if you do that, I've had many people who said, what if I'm makabel to do this? And I say, you know, guys makabel not to shoot somebody, that's not a good kabbalah. Because that's a basic menschlichkeit. There are certain basics of Yiddishkeit you got to do. You got to makabel to do, and you got to get with the program. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us. We should be able to be zeicha, to remember this and recall this when we face this challenge. We should be able to overcome the challenges, come out and discover the light at the end of the tunnel.